Welcome Up All Night DIY. I'm Monica. Thanks for joining me. Today's project is going to be a very simple, yet really cute, primitive, summer seasonal DIY. I chose this particular project not only because it's adorable, but also because it'll be very easy on my hands. And if you've been watching me, you know that I have rheumatoid arthritis, and I'm dealing with adjusting to how I approach my crafting and artwork. So, let's get into it. So to start out, we are going to need some Model Magic or the clay of your choice, but I find Model Magic is perfect for this particular situation because it does have a fluffy texture to it, and that's really what we're going to be looking for here. We're going to need some wood skewers, and I'm going to be using this planner peanut can as well, but any can will do, or container, up to you. And this is all good enough to get us started. We are going to be creating some roasted marshmallows. So I've grabbed myself a handful of clay. I'm going to knead it to condition it. This will distribute the moisture and it will keep the clay from cracking as it dries. I've pulled out one of my round fondant cutters. I'm just going to use this to gauge the circumference of my marshmallow. I'm not really going to be using this as a cutter. It's just strictly for measurement purposes. So now that the clay is conditioned, I'm going to roll it up into a marshmallow shape. Super easy to do. Just rolling it between my hands and a little on the table to get that cylindrical marshmallow shape. I think size-wise, this looks pretty good. You can make your marshmallows as tall, short, fat, thin as you prefer. Whatever suits you, do that. But for me, I think this looks good. I'm going to make multiples of these. I think maybe I'll do 7. And since I have my first marshmallow made, I'm going to measure all of my other marshmallows against that first one. I found a wee baggie of some clay that I had previously colored milk chocolate color. So you know what? We are going to make little pieces of chocolate and maybe some graham crackers for this wee display. I'll grab a handful of that colored clay and knead it just like we did with the other clay to make sure that it's pliable and that the moisture is evenly distributed. Let's roll it out nice and flat. There's not much here, so we'll do what we can, with what we have. Using one of my square fondant cutters, I'm going to punch out our clay to make our chocolate pieces. Of course, you could get yourself actual chocolate bar molds to create your chocolate pieces, but if you don't have molds, this is a good alternative. Once I get the squares cut, I'm going to cut them in half as evenly as I can to create wee rectangle pieces, like the little segments of Hershey bars. You feel me? With my letter stamps, I spelled out chalk, C-H-O-K, because I didn't have an extra C. Anyway, I'm going to stamp that in the center of each of the little segments. I just thought this was a cute additional touch. I believe I did this when I made the candy for Candy Head Jack. I'll link that video so you can, check that out. But again, this is totally a personal preference. To add another little embellishment, I'm going to take a paintbrush handle and just push it into the long sides of each segment to give it a little bit of a bevel, like you might see in a chocolate segment. We are going to need to make a couple of graham crackers for our s'mores. So once again, I grab a handful of clay, I condition it, and now I'm going to add some Americana honey brown paint to it. Right, a wee dab of paint, and we're going to incorporate it by stretching and kneading the clay until there's conformity in color. It only takes a few minutes, really. And there we have it. Looks pretty good. We're going to roll our graham cracker colored clay nice and flat. And this time I'll use my larger square fondant cutter, punch out graham cracker shapes. I'm going to use this pointy tool here to make the perforation line that graham crackers have down the center, and I'll do my best to get that in the middle. And I'm going to use a toothpick to poke in the classic graham cracker holes. Now, I'm going to let all of my marshmallows, chocolates, and graham crackers dry overnight. In the meantime, let's work on the can. This is just one of those cardboard cans wrapped in paper. It's not metal or anything, so all I'm going to do is apply a couple of coats of white chalk paint to the outside of the can to give me a nice blank canvas. And then we're going to set this aside for the night as well. We'll get back to all of these things in the morning. It's the next day, and all of our clay goodies are well dry because it's literally 100 degrees here today. Whee! Right, so we're going to want to add some embellishments to our clay pieces. And to do that, I'm going to start off by dry brushing my chocolate squares with some of this Espresso paint by Americana. I pick up some of the paint onto my brush and then scrub most of it off onto a paper towel, leaving just the right amount on there. I'm going to start by dry brushing the center of the chalk piece to highlight the imprinted word. And then I'm going to hit the edges. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. What do you think? And of course, we're going to keep going until we get all of our pieces dry brushed. Now I'm going to repeat this process with the graham crackers, but this time I'm using the same honey brown paint that I mixed with the clay. Of course, mixing it up with the clay made the color lighter, so by using the same color paint, it'll be slightly darker, and I think just the perfect color to make the crackers look baked and golden brown. Using my old craft toothbrush, dampening it, and then I'll dip it into the honey brown paint, pull my thumb across the bristles, and sprinkle my graham crackers. We're switching gears here to color our marshmallows. We're going to be using Vintage Photograph Distressing Ink by Tim Holtz and some regular old black stamping ink. Let's apply the ink by using a cosmetic sponge, and we're going to start with the Vintage Photograph. This is the perfect shade of brown to mimic a roasted marshmallow color. I'm going to focus first along the edges of the top and bottom of the marshmallow, adding some on the body of the marshmallow, you know, as I see fit. Look at that. That looks legit. And now we really want to get that black smoky look. So once again, we're going to hit the edges with some of the black ink. I think that looks pretty good. It's nice and light because this ink is starting to dry out on me, so it's not too dark. It's perfect. And now we're going to repeat this on all of the rest of our marshmallows. Once again, using my craft toothbrush dampened, I'll dip it into some Ceramcoat charcoal and run my thumb over it to sprinkle the marshmallows. I want this to look like it has that burnt bubbled look that you would get on a roasted marshmallow. You feel me? Once I'm done, we're going to set everything aside and we're going to work on the tin. So I went ahead and printed out a vintage campfire marshmallow label onto some vellum. I've had this label in my stash for ages. Recently, I designed my own marshmallow label called Bonfire Marshmallows. Well, Bonfire Mallows. I'll link that video too, just in case you haven't seen it. Anyhow, I'm going to cut out the labels. Campfire one is for the front. The other one that says finest quality is for the back of the can. Once I get them cut out, I'm going to hit the edges first with my Vintage Photograph ink, and then I'll come back with my black ink. As I'm sure you guys all know, this is my standard practice. We'll be using Mod Podge to affix our labels to our can. There will be wrinkles, but you know what? I'm good with that because I'm going for a more primitive look. And now we'll get the back label on as well. Once the label's in place, I give it a top coat of Mod Podge. You can see that they're smearing of some of the distressing ink, but again, I'm cool with that because I think it's adding to that aged look, so we're rolling with it. Since we have the Mod Podge on the go, we're going to use a cosmetic sponge to pounce a top coat onto our marshmallows, chocolate pieces, and crackers to protect them and give them a nice finished look. Now we want to add a wee bit of authentic grunge and age to our can. So the first thing I'm going to do is apply a coat of Hippo Gray around the top rim and bottom rim of my tin can to mimic that old metal. I'm just kind of dabbing it on, not really being particularly fussy with it. I'm also going to add some around the label. We want to incorporate some aging around the very edges of the label, so they don't look so obvious. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and let's just add some of this anywhere where it could use a little aging, don't you think? We'll do some dry brushing with some of that honey brown as well. This will give it a nice sepia appearance. I'm just eyeballing this, we'll do around the edges, of course, and definitely around the labels because we want to make sure that it looks cohesive. We need some rust, of course we do. So I grab my cinnamon and I'm going to dab some burnt sienna Americana paint in select areas of my can. And then I'm going to shake the real cinnamon onto it to give that texture that real rust would have. Focusing around the metal edges because naturally that's where rust would appear. I also want to add some coming down onto the surface of the can and around the label. For me, I feel like you can never have too much rust, you know what I'm saying? But then again, maybe that's just me. When I'm happy with the rust on the can, I'm going to spray it with a coat of clear matte sealer, which will keep that cinnamon from shedding. I also stained my skewers using both of my inks, and now all that's left to do is to display our goodies in our can. Shall we take a look? Here I've displayed the marshmallows, chocolate, and graham crackers together. I just sat them atop of some tissue paper for a fun s'mores look. And here we have the classic roasted marshmallow on a stick, quintessential to any bonfire and or cookout/barbecue. I tied some seasonal fabric scraps around the skewers and nestled them into some paper shred. I'll be able to easily fit this primitive piece into my fall decor as well, just by switching out the fabric scraps. This was a fun, budget-friendly project that was easy on the hands, and anyone can do this. Let me know what you think. I hope everyone has a fantastic holiday weekend. Happy 250. Stay safe. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Stay creative, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me. See you next time. Up all night with Monica.